Yesterday, in the parable of the unmerciful servant, Jesus told us about this servant who had this huge debt that there was no way he could ever pay it back. He had that huge debt completely forgiven. But then this same servant who had this debt forgiven turned to someone else who owed him a relatively small amount, and something that could be paid back, and treated that person without any pity, without compassion, without mercy. And he had that man who owed him a relatively small amount thrown into prison. And Jesus is not really talking about money, he's talking about sin and forgiveness. And sometimes there are people that we treat very harshly instead of with mercy. But other times, and we don't treat them harshly, we just try to avoid the whole thing because it's far too painful for us to want to get into, whether to even think about, and nonetheless to try to talk to the person and get to a point of forgiveness. It may be even too painful for us to want to yell at the person and treat them harshly, like this man who had the guy who owed him some money thrown into prison. But those things, those sins against us, they hurt. They're extremely painful. The amount of money that this servant was owed was a relatively small amount compared to what he had owed. But it was still a huge amount. It was still a lot of money. And the sins that are against us are like nothing compared to all of our sins against God, because all of our sins are against him. Relatively, the sins against us are really small. But they're not all that small by themselves. They hurt. They're unspeakably awful sometimes. And if there is something like that it's not forgiven, it's still lingering, and you don't know where to start, you're not sure how to approach the person, or even if it's the right time to, or if there ever will be a time to, or maybe there's just no way to approach them, there's no way to contact them anymore. If you have no idea where to start, but that sin that is against you, it hurts, and it's eating you up inside. Here's one suggestion. Bring that with you to the Holy Communion. The body and blood that you eat and drink were given and poured out because of that sin and for that sin. And pray about that when you're receiving forgiveness for your own sin and when you're receiving cleansing from whatever that other sin has done to you. Sin is a sticky thing. It can get on us even if it's not ours. We might feel guilty because of something done to us. Think about that when you're receiving Christ's precious body and his holy blood. And just start there. Meditate on this body and blood given and poured out for this thing that happened, that's still lingering with you. And you'll find peace. For Jesus wants to give that. Go there looking for the peace that Jesus wants to give, and you'll find it. And maybe the next Sunday you need to bring it back again to the same altar railing, to the same body and blood. That's fine. Keep bringing it back to that blood. And start there. There's no better place to start than in the body and blood where it is finished. Peace be with you today.